Alright, we are doing lesson 51, rounding decimal numbers. This is another lesson that has to do with place value, so if you have noticed, that's a common refrain. Place value is very, very important. And so please memorize place value and remember that all places are, the place value of each digit is determined on that number's place in relation to the decimal point, which means you have to start at the decimal point. So without further ado, let's go over place value really quick. Alright, so we start at the decimal point. To the left of the decimal point, directly one place to the left of it is the ones place. And after that, the tens, hundreds, thousands, so on and so forth. Now to the right of the decimal point, and this is what we're going to be focusing on, there's really only 3 places that you have to memorize. And then you also have to know that you're starting at the decimal point. So, decimal point. Then it does not go to the ones. There's only one ones place, and that's to the left of the decimal. To the right of the decimal point, we jump directly to tenths. Then after that, hundredths and thousandths. Remember, there's a THS there. Also, it's important to note that if you're told to round to the nearest cent, that's the same as rounding to the nearest hundredth. When we write money is written out, the notation we use. Money is only written to the nearest hundredths place. There are some examples of where the price of something is written out to the nearest thousandths place, but typically money, when we're talking about money, we go to the nearest hundredths place. So if you're told to round to the nearest cent, that's the same as rounding to the nearest hundredths place. Alright, say you want to buy a book and it's $6.89. The tax is 8%. Let's go ahead and calculate how much 8% would be for a book that's $6.89. Alright, so you're going to take $6.89 label, and you're going to multiply that by 8%. Okay? This is review. Keep in mind that you don't, when you're changing a percent to a decimal, which you have to do when you're finding a percentage, you don't just put the decimal in front. You count 2 places to the left, which would mean you need a placeholder 0. Alright, now you can multiply it out. 8 times 9 is 72, carry your 7. 8 times 8 is 64, plus 7 is going to be 71. 8 times 6 is going to be 48, plus 7 is going to be 55. Then, since the decimal point has been moved 1, 2, 3, 4 places over on top, you're going to move the decimal point 4 places over on bottom. 1, 2, 3, 4. So the decimal is going to go in front of the 5. Alright, so the sales tax is going to be, you can put a 0 in front there, 55 cents, but what's this 1, 2 over here? Normally, when we're talking about money, this 0 is kind of wrong spot. When we're talking about money, we truncate. We only go to the nearest cent, which would be the hundredth place. Alright? In this situation, how would we pay 1/100th of a dollar? Or 1/1000th of a dollar? Or 2 10,000ths of a dollar? How would you pay that type of money? Typically, what is done is we round to the nearest cent, which is rounding to the nearest hundredth. In this case, if you had a number line, this marker's dying. There, that's a little bit better. This would be that would be 55 cents, and this would be 56 cents. Excuse me, I'm about to sneeze. Now is 5,512 10,000ths, is that closer to 56 or 55? Well, one thing you could do, and since we really don't need this 2, we're rounding to the nearest cent, so we only need the one to the right of it, you could add zeros right there. That way you can determine 551 hundredths, if that's closer to 550 hundredths or 560 hundredths. And clearly, if we were writing this out, 551 hundredths would be right about here. It would fall like right there on the number line. Alright? And so 551 hundredths is a lot closer to 550 hundredths. And so 550 hundredths, that means the 1 would basically tell the 5 to stay the same. And so we would round this to 55 cents sales tax. So the answer to this problem, the tax on a book that costs $6.89, the 8% sales tax would be a grand total of 55 cents. Let me erase some of this here. It's a little bit neater. So that would be your answer. 55 cents. Alright, here's another example. So, if you went to the gas station in your new car, because you just turned 16, I know most of you are 9 or 10, so that's, I don't know, 6 years from now. 6 years from now, you pull in with your new car, and you get 10 and 381 hundredths of a gallon of gas. Now let's go ahead and round this to the nearest tenth. So you have to know your place value. And in this situation, your place value to the nearest tenth would be right there. So we have to round this to the nearest tenth. So you're basically going to truncate, and 3 will be your terminating place value. But is 10 and 38 hundredths, is that closer to 10 and 30 hundredths or 10 and 40 hundredths? Well, you guys know how to round, so you look directly to the right of the number you're rounding to, and the number to the right of it, if it's 5 and up, you round up. If it's 4 and down, you round down. Okay, so this will be 10 and 3 hundredths, if this is a number line. And over here would be 10 and 4 hundredths. Guess we don't need this 0 here. Now, if we wrote 10 hashes in between here, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, this number right here would be right here on the number line. And it's clear to see that 10 and 38 hundredths is a lot closer to 10 and 40 hundredths. Remember, we can add zeros right there. So this is 10 and 30 hundredths, this is 10 and 40 hundredths. 10 and 38 hundredths would be right here on the number line, which is a lot closer to 10 and 40 hundredths. And so this would round to 10 and 4 tenths. 40 hundredths, you could reduce that decimal to 10 and 4 tenths gallons of a gas. So you almost got 10 and a half gallons of gas. So 10 and 10.4 is 10 4 tenths. That's pretty close to a half a gallon. If I can stop this video. Alright, example number 3. Estimate the product. Product means the answer to a multiplication problem, so we're multiplying these two things, of 6.85 and 4.2. First, you need to round to the nearest tenth. Alright, so you have two numbers that you need to round to the nearest tenth. Now, you know that you can add as many zeros as you need to the right of the decimal if you need to. So I'm going to add 1 0. That way we have 2 place values to the right of the decimal here and 2 place values to the right of the decimal here. Make it equal. Alright, 6 and 85 hundredths, we're rounding to the nearest tenth. So I'm going to underline the 8 because the 8 is in the tenths spot. Alright, so I look directly to the right of the 8, and since this is 5, 6, 7, or 8, which in this case it's 5, 5 tells 8 to round up to 9. So this is going to be 6 and 9 tenths. And this is 0, so the 2 stays the same. So this is going to be rounded to 4 and 2 tenths. So we're going to multiply these two numbers. 6 and 9 tenths and 4 and 2 tenths. So we're multiplying these out. 2 times, I am going to run out of room here. Well, maybe not. I'll write small. 9 times 2 is 18. Here your 1. 2 times 6 is 12, plus 1 is 13. Cancel, cancel, placeholder 0. 4 times 9 is going to be 36, carry my 3. 4 times 6 is going to be 24, plus 3 is 27. Add those up. 8, 9, 8, 2. So since the decimal point has been moved 2 places to the left here, 1, 2, 2 places left on top, that means I need to move it 2 places to the left on bottom. So this is going to be 28 and 98 hundredths. Now that was rounding to the nearest tenths spot. Say you're rounding to the nearest ones, which would be the 6 and the 4. So say if you're supposed to estimate the answer to that problem and you're going to round to the nearest ones, then this would be something when you don't want to be as accurate. Alright, so say you have 6 and 85 hundredths and 4 and 20 hundredths. I'm going to round, instead of rounding to the nearest tenth spot, I'm going to round to the nearest 1. So, in this situation, the 8, the number directly to the right of the number we're rounding to, which would be 8 in this situation, would tell the 6 to go up. So you're rounding up to 7. And the 2 would tell the 4 to stay in the same spot. So this would round to 4. So you're multiplying 7 times 4, which would be 28. So that would be the answer to the product of these two if we rounded to the nearest whole number, which would be the nearest ones place. Alright, so, and this would be the answer if you rounded to the nearest tenths place. It just kind of depends on your what you're estimating. If you're estimating something that it's not that significant, it's not that important that you're as accurate, you could round to the nearest ones place. Say you wanted to be a little bit more accurate, then you could round to the nearest tenths place. Just depends on what you need. Alright, let's go ahead. That concludes Lesson 51. I want to do a couple problems off your homework. So let's go ahead and do that. Number 2. It says, from Mona's home to school is 3.5 miles, or 3.5 miles. How far does Mona travel riding from home to school and back home again? Alright, so here's her house. Here's the school. Draw a line in between. That's 3 5/10 of a mile. There, and 3 5/10 back. Okay, so you're basically adding those two. 5 plus 5 is 10. Carry your 1. 3 plus 3 is 6 plus 1 is 7 miles. So, she rides her bike 7 miles. She is in shape. Good job, Mona. Alright, let's do another one. Let's do, erase this really fast. Let's do number 8. Number 8 is an algebra problem. And then it's 399 thousandths plus some random number, W, equals 4/10. I would like to take this opportunity to add 2 zeros, so it's the same number of decimals. And then I want to get W by itself, so I'm going to subtract 399 thousandths. If I do it from one side, then I'm going to do it to the other side. Okay, that cancels. All I have left on this side is W. On this side, I'm only going to have 0.001. Okay, so 1 thousandths left. Alright, let's do a couple more. Let me look up which ones I want. Alright, number 9 is a good one. 4 over 25 hundredths. Top divided by bottom. So I'm going to take top, which is 4, divide that by 25 hundredths. A lot of people say, well, how do I divide by a decimal? Well, you don't. You change it to an easier division problem. And the way you do that is you go over, over, up. Remember this method. So I'm going to move the decimal. Some people got confused in class. They're like, how do I know how far to move the decimal? You can move it as far as you want. There's no rule on this. The only stipulation is if however many places you move the decimal over for the divisor, you do the same for the dividend. So in this case, the decimal is right there to the right of the ones place. And so I move the decimal over 2 places there, since I did it 2 places there, which would require some placeholder zeros. Okay, so your new division problem is 400 divided by 25. 25 can't go in the 4. 25 will go into 40 one time. 1 times 25 is 25. Subtract. You're going to have 15 left over. Bring your 0 down. 25 will go into 150 6 times. 6 times 25 is going to be 150. Subtract. No remainder. So your answer to this problem, 4 over 25 hundredths, is going to be 16. Alright, last problem I'm going to go over on your homework. Number 12. 3 and 5 twelfths minus 1 and 7 twelfths. Now you do fraction, you evaluate your fractions first. 5 twelfths minus 7 twelfths. Now you can't take 7 away from 5, so you need to borrow from the 3. The 3 becomes a 2. Now I'm going to take the whole number and I'm going to put it over here with the fractions. I'm going to add in a fraction that is equivalent to the one that I borrowed here. Now I'm going to pick 12 over 12 because that's our denominator, and we're going with the denominator. Then I'm going to take 12 plus 5, which is going to be 17. So I basically took this fraction right here, 12 over 12, and then I added it to that fraction. Now I can subtract. 17 minus 7 is going to be 10. 10 twelfths. Okay? Now 2 minus 1 is 1. Now if you want to reduce this, you can reduce this, and this is going to be 1 and 5/6. Alright, that is your answer.